Hello, ladies and gentlemen. MarauderEX here with the rant discussion type thing. Let's take a second and talk about AtGames, shall we? Because it's been a week for them, and not a good week. For those of you who don't know who AtGames are, they are a company that does clone consoles. They make the Flashback series. Most notably, for good or bad, are their Sega Flashback consoles. They did several Sega Flashback consoles that allowed you to just plug this console into your TV, and it had a bunch of preloaded games on it from Sega, and then you could also, on most versions, you could pop your cartridge in and play it there. So if it was one of the games that you owned that wasn't on the cartridge, it worked as a kind of makeshift Genesis. The only problem is the quality for those were always really viewed as subpar. Specifically the Sega ones. There were some Atari Flashback consoles as well, but the Sega ones always had what people brought up most often were audio issues. The audio sounds and soundtrack were always just off because whatever sound processor they used was just not right. They often show, most notably Streets of Rage 2 was really the best example because most of the sound effects sounded incredibly wrong, and then the soundtrack itself was just ear-shattering. So they never really had a very strong positive reputation. For what it was like a $20 to $40 console. Like, you're getting about $20 to $40 worth of, like, it's like, yeah, it's a budget thing. It's not a quality thing, and that's, you know, that's a niche. Go with that. But this week they kind of issued a couple of statements that really just don't mesh well with the reality of the situation. They had another Flashback console come out, and basically it was just it's a wireless controller and like a little HDMI dongle that pops into your TV, and it's a neat wireless console. That's cool. And it's very much an arcade style. At least that's what it's billed as. It's a bunch of Namco classics, and they sent out review copies to several people on YouTube and other places, and the people reviewed them and generally gave them positive reviews. And then the product hit the stores, and people found out that it's not what was actually being reviewed. So the review units had arcade versions of these games, specifically games like Pac-Man, you know, Namco games. So arcade version of Pac-Man, it worked really well. They had a lot of good things to say about it. The retail version, however, had, I believe, NES ROMs, not arcade. So there were a lot of issues with that. It's like, I wanted the arcade versions of these games, not a home console version of these games. And that's what the package indicates that you're getting, is the arcade versions of these ROMs. And you didn't. That's a problem. And when people started calling out on it, specifically a YouTuber by Mad Little Pixel, their PR people got really defensive really fast. They started issuing statements that kind of didn't mesh well with what was going on, because they said that there were going to be two versions of the console. There was going to be an arcade version and a home version, and that you could get the arcade version at certain retailers and home version at others. And then everyone's like, no, the only versions that are available right now are the home versions. And they're like, well, the problem is we had sent out the review copies beforehand, and there was a production issue, and we couldn't get the arcade version, so we had to settle for the other version, and we'll issue a statement at some point when the arcade versions will be available, and, you know, until then, just if you're not interested, and just don't buy it. But then they started going around accusing everyone of criticism of harassment. Basically, anyone that said that this could be a scam, they started blocking on Twitter, including Mad Little Pixel and several other people. In fact, there's a good chance that if they see this video, they might block me on Twitter too. But it's been a marketing 101 experience of what not to do in these situations. Because from a consumer perspective, it looks like a bait and switch. It looks like they sent out a high quality product to get good reviews and then actually released a subpar quality product with no announcement that there was a change. In fact, the packaging still indicates that you are getting the high quality product. You're getting the arcade ROMs because it uses pictures of the arcade ROMs. Now, there's usually some sort of language of pictures are simulated, not, indicative of what the final product may be, type legalese BS. But at the same time, that's still a dick move. And to, if you're going to release a product that has a specific type of game on it, and you actually see that type of game being played for the review, and then you get basically a watered down version of it with no sort of announcement of, oh yes, there was an issue in production. And I understand that there are issues in production, that sometimes things just don't jive well in the manufacturing process. Sometimes something has to be cut because, we ordered 10,000 of these, only 5,000 arrived, or we wanted this particular type of circuit board and they didn't have that, so we had to go with this one, which means we had to make adjustments, and those adjustments meant we couldn't do what we wanted to do. Those things happen, and I get that. But also, when those things happen, businesses worth their salt say that happens before the customers come in. Also, it raises some questions of how many of the arcade units were made, because obviously several of them went out. So were those just early prototypes and not billed as early prototypes, considering they had retail packaging and everything? Like, what happened? That's my question. What happened? And why is that not being addressed? And really the only issue that they said is, yes, we should have done better about this. It's like, yeah, you should have. You really should have. Because right now it's just making a company that already has a reputation of being subpar to now going full on scummy. And if that's not the reputation you want to have, then you need to work towards not having that reputation. And getting mad at people on Twitter is not really the best way to do that. The whole... Whoever is running that PR, or running that Twitter account, really does need to take some PR classes, because the second you start yelling and blaming the consumer base for your issues is when you've already lost any sort of credibility. And I get that they're like, they were using, harassing language, calling it a scam. It's like, their consumers are going to call it a scam. Your job is not to give them credibility by blocking them. Your job is to make it as transparent as possible so that, yeah, they called it a scam, but, no, this is just, yeah, it's our screw up, but we weren't trying to, like, you have to do a better job than that. And I just don't think they can, because, personally, it seems too cut and dry that there was something shady going on. The level of issues that happened during this production run, someone somewhere within the company had to have caught this. Just right off the bat, someone had to have seen this. Someone had to have been like, oh, well, we sent these review copies out and they're using this ROM, but we're using these ROMs now. That's going to be a problem. Someone somewhere saw that, and at that point is when a statement should have been made. Not once the products are already available in retail, already on store shelves. in the packaging that indicates that they are getting the same quality product that was reviewed prior. So, yeah. Someone dropped the ball. It may not have been the person handling the Twitter account. It may not have been, I have no idea how many people are actually employed by that company, but someone, somewhere in that company, did drop the ball. And yeah, that's what people want to see the accountability for, is like what happened, where and what point did this happen. And yeah, it has been just a mess of marketing, and really quick way to damage a company's reputation really fast. Just, I mean, I get it. You can only be human, and just like you're trying to respond the best you can. Maybe you the person running the Twitter account personally got defensive because that's their job to and it's not the best way to go about it. So I don't know. It's been rough. All of that really could have also been forgiven if the product that was released was actually alright. Now that the product is available, people are doing reviews on the retail quality product, and it's just as subpar as what everyone has already come to expect from an AtGames licensed product. There's issues with slowdown, screen tearing, what have you. Supposedly, I've seen some tech breakdown on it. The tech behind it is actually, somewhat decent. It's just whatever actual emulator they are using is not well optimized for what they're trying to do, and it's just not working well on that hardware. It's like the hardware itself should be capable of doing this. I've seen people say that it's really easy to take a HDMI Android type device, it's very similar to the dongle, that you can just load your own emulator and ROMs into for the same price and get much better quality out of it. And that's disappointing. That really is. Because, again, that means something, somewhere, someone dropped the ball. So, like, if it was a relatively decent product, it might have been salvageable. But between the product quality and the PR quality, this is just bad. And the company has already had a lot of issues. Sega has already pulled out of allowing AtGames to license their stuff in the future. Like, the AtGames is no longer going to be making the Genesis flashback type things, or basically anything Sega related. Sega's pulled out and said, no, we'll go with someone else. And, I love Sega, but I'm also one of the first to point out that Sega is not very quick on making, positive business decisions either. So, for them to say that, that should be telling. Because a company that obviously did not care for a very long time about the quality of product that had their name slapped on it is now going, maybe we should pull out. That should have been an indicator for AtGames. It's like, we should probably try to do something else. Yeah, that's it. So, let me know your thoughts. Have you ever purchased an AtGames product? Are you inclined to purchase an AtGames product after this debacle? I like that word, debacle. Or is it just like, if you want to play a Sega game, are you going to find a myriad of other ways to do it rather than, spending $20 to $40 on a clone console made by a completely different company? Like, buy it on Steam, buy it on PlayStation Network, Xbox Live. They've got so many compilation discs on so many systems. Or are you just going to find a way to hook your Genesis up to a TV, or are you going to go out and buy a CRT just so you can have that classic looking experience? What What are your thoughts on it? Because this is an interesting scenario, and I get to live through it, you know? Get to watch it all unfold. So till my next rant, later everyone.